The worst cat food brands have less than 25% meat. Yes, that's right. Food intended for obligate carnivores has less than 25% meat. And the meat that is included can include 4D meats, which is dead, diseased, dying, and disabled, even if it says premium on the bag. The rest of the ingredients are carbs, fillers, artificial ingredients, and other crap that cats don't need. And many of the worst cat food brands are owned by billion-dollar companies that produce junk food for humans. Hey friends, it's Jess Jericho here to show you what to avoid on the cat food label. Grab your cat food label cheat sheet in the pinned comment. So the worst cat food brands have the words with and flavor in the product name. According to AAFCO product name rules, any product that has the word with in the name has somewhere between 3% and 24.9% of that named ingredient. So for example, with beef in gravy would have between 3 and 24.9% beef because of the word with. AAFCO product name rules say that the word flavor has somewhere between 0 and 2.9% of the named ingredient because of the word flavor. So for example, if the cat food says chicken flavor, it has less than 3% chicken. If it had at least 3% chicken, the name would say with chicken instead of chicken flavor. And if these products had at least 25% of the named ingredient, it would have a word like dinner, entree, recipe, platter, formula, etc., instead of saying with chicken or chicken flavor. So you'll want to avoid cat food names that have the word with and flavor in the name, because these cat foods are going to have the absolute minimum of those named ingredients. Next, we'll talk about the worst cat food ingredients and what to avoid in the ingredients list. AAFCO's definition for byproducts says that it's essentially the leftovers from the human food industry, including parts that are not considered human edible. So examples include some of the secreting organs, some of the bones, the fat, the blood. But I can go to my grocery store and buy things like pig feet, beef kidney, lamb tongue. So how do we know that byproducts in cat food are actually clean sources of these ingredients? Additionally, AAFCO says that 4D meats, dead, diseased, dying, and disabled, are allowed in cat food as long as they're rendered. Rendering is the process in which these ingredients are subjected to very, very high amounts of heat and pressure. And according to a CRS report for Congress on animal rendering, it states that rendered ingredients can come from dead animals from barns, marketing lots, and even animal shelters. And some of these sources include waste from restaurants, groceries, and stores. And typically waste is leftovers that they can't feed to humans, meaning expired. So again, how do we know that meat byproducts are actually clean sources of these secreting organs and bones? Especially considering that good quality cat food brands list the exact sources of these ingredients. For example, instead of saying poultry byproducts, they'll list ingredients like turkey bone, turkey liver, turkey kidney. So why would some cat food brands specify the ingredients when other cat food brands just use the general blanket terms? Other ingredients to avoid in cat food include grains, corns, starchy vegetables like peas, potatoes, rice, soy, sugar, salt, binding agents, chemical preservatives, and synthetic colors. There's a huge list of ingredients to avoid put together by a couple of pet food formulators and health consumer advocates. It's on Dr. Kruger's website. And the simple reason to avoid these ingredients is that they're not suitable for cats. Now here's where people get mad. They'll say something like, "Are you kidding me? I've been feeding this brand to my cat for 10 years and they're happy and healthy." But holistic vets say that it is the long-term consumption of bad quality foods that make cats sick. Cats don't get overweight overnight. We don't get overweight overnight. Diseases don't develop overnight. It's the long-term consumption of these bad quality foods that cause problems. For example, with kidney disease, most of the symptoms and clinical signs don't show up until the kidneys are about 70% damaged. Unfortunately, AAFCO does not require carbohydrates on the guaranteed analysis, so you'll have to do this calculation on your own. My cat food label cheat sheet includes a very easy way to calculate this. And you'll have to convert the numbers to a dry matter basis. That basically means to remove the moisture. You always have to convert to a dry matter basis because cat foods have very different moisture contents, so you have to look at the analysis on a dry matter basis. That means remove the moisture. This is important because even the National Research Council says that carbohydrates are not essential to the cat's diet. And most of the worst cat food brands have somewhere between 25 to 50% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. The cat's natural diet is only about 2% carbs. This would include the stomach contents of the prey since they eat herbivores. So 25% carbs is a 1,150% increase from the cat's natural diet. Holistic veterinarians say that high amounts of carbohydrates lead to obesity, and obesity puts your cat at a much higher risk for very serious health-related issues like certain cancers, diabetes, respiratory issues, arthritis, and even shortened lives. The worst cat food brands are often owned by billion-dollar companies. They own more than 10 different cat food brands, and they also produce human foods, mostly junk. For example, Blue Buffalo is owned by General Mills, a cereal manufacturing company. Now, why would a cereal manufacturing company want to own cat food? If you take a look at the ingredients list of the worst cat food brands, you'll see that a lot of cereals and grains and corns are included in their ingredients. So basically, these cat food brands are a recycling bin for everything that they can't feed to humans. Also, many of these cat food brands say that they're the best, but why would the manufacturing company have to own 10 different cat food brands if the one of them is actually the best? But my cat food says premium, that means it must be the best. Actually, AAFCO doesn't have an official definition for the word premium, and on their website they state that premium does not mean that it's better quality or that it's held to any different standards than any other pet food. So technically, any cat food brand can say premium on the label without having better quality ingredients. And even the FDA says that pet food manufacturers use fancy claims and marketing gimmicks to sell their products. Let me know in the comments how your cat's food stacks up. Thanks for watching.